Thank you, Margaret. All right, let's share the screen. Okay, we're about to get into some really, really good topics here. So just to review where we are in our itinerary, we're doing mantra meditation today, starting with handling mental imagery. And with Bhante, we're going to start mindfulness, actually discussing what is mindfulness. It is going to put a lot of stuff for us together that we've covered. It's fascinating and empowering. We've already covered a few different techniques, as you know, of meditation and Jewish spiritual living. We're doing mantra meditation, otherwise known as Haggah. And upcoming, the next 2 units will be contemplation, concentrating on a visual object, and visualization, holding an image in the mind's eyes. These are going to be particularly interesting. They're different forms of meditation. Visualization in particular is going to be empowering because there's a whole line of thought that says, if you see it, you become it, type of thing. And so that particular technique is going to help us strengthen our powers of visualization. Okay, let's go with the mantra meditation. Here we go. Okay, let's talk about the mind wandering. Again, we're talking about a mantra. We're talking about choosing a specific word or phrase that you repeat, 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 that you repeat. We're doing it lowly to ourselves at first because that helps us keep our focus. After you reach a point where your focus is pretty strong, you could say it to yourself inside. As Rabbi Kaplan describes, that's a decision you make. If you decide to stop saying it slowly, silently lowly to yourself, and then go completely internal, but that you find your mind wandering, then simply start saying it again quietly to yourself to be able to strengthen your ability to focus again. And we did mention that there's certain words that have powers that mean things. You can say waffles, waffles, waffles all over the place. That's fine. They have somewhat of a meaning. They'll probably make you hungry for waffles. But if you say Ribono Shel Olam or other words then that have more powerful spiritual meanings, it'll affect you subconsciously. Okay. So at first you may allow the mind to wander freely while reciting the mantra. So that's interesting. He's giving license to allowing the mind to just wander while you're saying this. As long as you have an inner awareness that the words Ribono Shel Olam denote master of the universe, the words themselves will pull your thoughts in a meaningful direction. That's very much his point of view, meaning he states, he believes that if you say certain words, even if your mind is elsewhere, just saying the words will impact you subconsciously and elevate you to some extent, which I find very interesting. So he says the same thing with prayer. He says, even just saying the words without even knowing what they mean, let alone concentrating on them, has a spiritual impact. Okay. But he also emphasizes this at the beginner's level. And you would definitely want to get to a point where you're focusing on the words and understanding the meaning. Okay. So obviously, Ribono Shel Olam, master of the universe, you can't get higher than that. So even if you're saying Ribono Shel Olam, but Ribono Shel Olam, and your mind is wandering to whatever, it's uplifting you spiritually. No matter where the thoughts lead, there is no cause for concern. A Hasidic teaching says that any thought that enters the mind during meditation does so for a purpose. So this is a point of debate. This Hasidic thought corresponds to thinking about dreams. There are some people who say that dreams are just
under
like,
there. I don't know where it is now.
yeah, I'm going to put you guys on, you guys got to mute. Okay. There are some people that hold that dreams, the stuff of dreams, are just the clutter from the leftover from the day, and your body's taking the time to disperse it and let it settle. But there are other people that believe that dreams are meaningful, that they're there for a reason, and that they're instructive. So similarly, there's this line of thought that he's quoting that says that the stuff that comes up when you meditate is there for a reason, as just opposed to just being clutter and stuff sifting through your mind. Okay. Okay, whatever you believe is fine. The point is, though, we eventually want to get to a point where we're focusing on the words. It is also instructive to pay attention to the visual images you see while meditating with the eyes closed. All right, this is where he's going with this. As you become more advanced, these images become clearer and more vivid, and it becomes much easier to focus on them. Beyond that, as days pass, your control over these images improves dramatically during the meditative state. The vividness of these images can also become spectacular. One must be careful, however, not to take these images too seriously. As one advances, the images become more explicit and can take the form of visions. The neophyte meditator may be tempted to place great significance on these visions and think that he is actually experiencing prophecy or the like. It is therefore important to realize that any visions one may experience are not important and that undue emphasis should not be placed on them. Unless a person is extremely advanced, it is assumed that any visions he experiences are creations of the mind and nothing more. All right, so this is very loaded. And again, my focus is on getting to a point where you're focusing on the words and able to focus on the words and get the most meaning out of the repetition of the words. This whole business about the mental imagery is a side attraction and potentially a side benefit. And you can understand that you have to be kind of advanced to be able to keep the mantra going and at the same time start playing with the mental images that pop into your mind. That's an advanced state. You know you're doing it wrong if you're forgetting the repetition and getting so wrapped up in the images. You're also doing it very wrong if you are running away with the imagery and thinking, oh my God, God's sending me a message or I'm having a prophecy. None of that should take place. So that's the danger of getting wrapped up in the images. In the Kabbalah literature, there are warnings, even to advanced meditators, not to give credence to visions. Even the most impressive visions can be spurious and come from the other side. I'm not exactly sure what he means by the other side, but the dark side, this side of us where we can get very negative, very gloomy, very depressed, can think bad thoughts. Everybody can dip into that pool, so to speak. And if you're using it with a lot of mental power, if you're harnessing energy, if your mental energy while you're meditating, and you take a dip into that pool, then you can come up with bad stuff. Why give yourself a nightmare? Indeed, acting on the basis of images seen while in meditative state is considered to be extremely dangerous and detrimental to one's spiritual development. Therefore, when a person experiences images or visions, they should be taken as aesthetic experiences and nothing more. At most, they should be taken as the first hints of a spiritual experience. All right, I'm glad he's saying this. So they're just enhancements to the experience here, all the stuff that comes up, and it can be very vivid. You just pay it a lot less attention than you do the mantra, and consider it as furnishings to the experience of, or supplements to the experience of, and what you're getting out of the mantra. Okay, mental imagery. Now, in general, bodily motion destroys concentration during mantra meditation and should be avoided. Some people, however, report that a slight, very slow swaying, perhaps ½ inch in each direction, which is not a lot, helps ease tension during the initial stages. If you find this helpful, you may use it. I don't like it. If you don't want to go into the meditative experience tense, do something physical to get rid of body tension. You know, as we do in the beginning of our meditation, you do a body inventory and find the tense points and relax them. So he's basically using the same principle, saying that physical motion can relax your body. So I'd rather get that done as a separate activity before the meditation. Get the tension out of there. Okay. At first, during meditation, you may allow the mind to wander freely or concentrate on the images you see in your mind's eye. However, as you become more advanced, you should begin to allow the words of the mantra to fill the mind completely, blanking out all sensation. This involves keeping all other thoughts out of the consciousness. All of your attention should be focused on the words of the mantra, leaving no room for any other thought. That's where we want to be. So again, the mental imagery that pops up is really just the product of an undisciplined mind, and it's going to pop up. So you don't kick yourself and say, oh, go. You don't fight it. You acknowledge it. You don't make a big deal out of it, and you're mindful of the fact that what you really need to be doing is focusing more and more and more on the mantra itself, which again points to the importance of choosing the right word or phrase as your mantra so you could really appreciate and get something out of it. Of course, until you become proficient in this discipline, extraneous thoughts will constantly try to push their way into the mind. You must then gently push them out, forcing your concentration back to the words of the mantra. This can sometimes take considerable effort, but it is the means through which one gains control of one's thoughts. Just keep returning to the focal point. That's why we say when we do our meditation, if you lose your focus, go back to the breath. That is the meditation. That's what we're talking about. That is strengthening your mind, your control over the contents of your mind. And by the way, Ribbona Shalom is a marvelous mantra, but there's many phrases, and they don't have to be in Hebrew, but things that reach out and grab you. Some phrase, some from a Siddur or the Torah or whatever it is, something that you really respond to. You use that. Some people find it easier to banish extraneous thoughts if they recite the mantra very slowly. As we shall see, slowness is also used in other types of meditation. At other times, however, it may be preferable to recite the mantra rapidly, sometimes even racing through the words. Here again, each individual must find his own pace. I'm a real big fan of slowing it down. It forces you to concentrate on every detail of what you are saying. And you stretch it out and you really notice everything about it. In Kung Fu practice, we call it doing Qigong style. Qigong is slower Kung Fu. And you do a move slow to feel, so you see what's happening in every part of your body when you move. So here with the mantra, you're saying Ribono Shel Olam. And your mind is like, wow, I never appreciated the sound of that Olam before. Like, what is, and Olam means world or universe, you know, so it really helps you dive into it. The racing part, I'm not sure. After the meditation is over, remain in place for approximately 5 minutes, allowing the mind to absorb the effects of the meditation. You also need some time to come back down before returning to your daily routine. Again, you may wish to hum a soft melody during this period. It should be a time of intimate closeness with the divine. So you don't just jump out of the chair ready to do whatever. You may wish to use the moments following a meditation to have a short conversation with God. As mentioned earlier, Rabbi Nachman saw mantra meditation primarily as a means of preparing for such a divine conversation, which he saw as a higher type of meditation. In any case, one can feel very close to God after a meditation, and it is a good time to express that closeness. Whereas Eastern schools see mantra meditation as an end in itself, Jewish sources seem to indicate that it is more of a preparation for a deeper spiritual experience. It's both. It's a spiritual experience that's also preparatory. Definitely spiritual experience. But just imagine if you know, look at it this way. Let's suppose you wanted to go out and have pizza for lunch, and you spend 15 minutes saying to yourself, I love pizza. I love pizza. I love pizza. You spend 15 minutes doing that. You know that when you went out and had that pizza, it's going to taste really good. So it's the same thing here. You say, Rabbona Shalom, Rabbona Shalom, Rabbona Shalom. And then you do that for, like he says, 20 or 30 minutes. And then you say, God, here you are. I've been talking to you this whole time. You are primed to have that conversation. So that's what we're talking about here. Some sources state that after meditating, one should smell fragrant spices or perfumes so as to re-involve oneself in the physical world. It is also prescribed that some light food be eaten shortly afterward, since through the blessing, the food can elevate the entire body. We're going to get into that with blessings, by the way. But isn't it interesting that that he's recommending using spices, using the sense of smell? We'll have to get into, I'm going to see if I can find a source for meditation with fragrances with a sense of smell. If you notice, when we offer sacrifices in the Torah, we have a reach nichoach. We have the smell is appeasing to God, whatever that means. But it's a sense, we're stimulating our sense of smell to have this elevated experience in giving a sacrifice. He's not smelling it, but we're stimulating our sense of smell to appreciate, to have an elevated experience. So smell is key. Of course, meditating on the phrase Ribono Shel Olam, Master of the Universe, has great value in its own right, and some people may be content to make it a lifetime practice. Others, however, may want to use it as a way to learn meditative techniques and recognize higher states of consciousness, and then go on to what are considered more advanced methods. Well, that remains to be seen, but in and of itself, it's really powerful. But whether or not you decide to use it on a regular basis as a lifetime practice or as an entry to higher drugs, then you first have to get a handle on it. So you have to do it. And as Rabbi Kaplan says, you got to do it every day for a specified time, 20 minutes, let's say, ideally 30. And you have to do it consistently because, as we've said, continually, there's an accumulated effect. You're priming your body and mind to experience a certain state. And if you keep doing it, then you're building on what you've achieved prior, and you're able to go deeper, faster. But if you have long layoffs and you said, all right, well, that was fun, we'll do something else now, then maybe we'll go back to it, you're starting from scratch again. you're kind of familiar, but you're starting from scratch. So whatever meditation you choose, and remember, I'm going to give you, over the next few months, I'm going to give you at least 2 more. You've got to make a commitment to doing it continuously. Okay. Let us go to Bhante. And we're going to discuss mindfulness. And as you know, he likes mindfulness, and he's really good at describing it. He uses, which I think they're Hindu words, but I'm not sure, which I'm not going to cover the vocabulary. He doesn't use them a lot. But I'm going to tell you what he says and what the concepts and principles are. And there's a very distinct Jewish parallel to this, which we'll discuss, which you're not going to immediately understand, or see the connection, but maybe you will. We'll get into that. Okay. Mindfulness is an activity, but what is it? There can be no precise answer, at least not in words. So we're automatically getting pretty metaphysical here. Words are devised by the symbolic levels of the mind, and they describe those realities with which symbolic thinking deals. Mindfulness is pre-symbolic. It is not shackled to logic, but it can be experienced easily. And it can be described as long as you keep in mind that the words are only fingers pointing at the moon. This is something he says all the time, and we need to bear it in mind. You don't take what he's saying literally. You understand that it's pointing to a state that's experienced intuitively, subconsciously, with your sixth sense, but not with your rational conceptual mind. That's why he's saying it's pre-symbolic, because the rational and conceptual mind uses symbols, words, and so he's making sure we understand that what he's describing has to be felt to understood, not logically understood. The actual experience lies beyond the words and above the symbols. Mindfulness could be described in completely different terms than will be used here, and each description could be still correct. We've covered Bhante enough to get an idea of what he's talking about, so we're going to stick with his version, his interpretation. Mindfulness is a subtle process that you are using at this very moment. The fact that this process lies above and beyond words does not make it unreal, quite the reverse. Mindfulness is the reality that gives rise to words. The words that follow are simply pale shadows of reality. So it is important to understand that everything that follows here is analogy. It is not going to make perfect sense. It will always remain beyond verbal logic, but you can experience it. The meditation technique called the Vipassana, which is what we're doing, insight meditation, was introduced by the Buddha 2,500 centuries ago. It's a set of mental activities specifically aimed at experiencing a state of uninterrupted mindfulness. So how old are all these Jewish forms of meditation, which are involving the same thing, which is controlling the contents of your mind and becoming increasingly self-aware? From day one, even older than the Buddha. As the more you understand what we're saying about meditation and the importance of controlling your mind, you'll see that right at the beginning of right at the beginning of monotheism, that was important. How do we know? because we've always made reference to what Abraham Avinu, Abraham, the patriarch, did. He used his mind to deduce that there was a God, there was the creator behind all the creations, and it prompted him to reflect on his life and move on to Canaan, take his family there, which we're going to read about this week in Parsha Lech Lecha. So that dates back 4,000 years. That was an example of somebody using supreme meditation, the kind of meditation that Rabbi Kaplan talks about, where you're at the same time you're observing and understanding your external universe, then understanding what's happening inside of you, and making decisions about how to make the two meet. And as Rabbi Kaplan says, you then connect with God. The connection is your conversation with God. And that's what Abraham had. So the point is, his perspective is what the Buddha started 2,500 years ago. Our perspective is basically what Abraham Avinu started 4,000 years ago. When you first become aware of something, there is a fleeting instant of pure awareness just before you conceptualize the thing, before you identify it. That is a state of awareness. I think we've been doing meditation long enough. It's, as a matter of fact, it is just about a year that we started this class. So we've been doing it just about a year. So we know enough to understand what he's talking about. When we meditate, the whole goal, as we understand, is there's a thought coming up. Before we get super involved with the thought, we get to a point where we recognize, the thought's popping up. Let me let it go before I get involved with it. Okay, that initial awareness, pre-conceptualizing about, is what he's talking about. Ordinarily, this state is short-lived. It is that flashing split second. Just as you focus your eyes on the thing, just as you focus your mind on the thing, just before you objectify it, clamp down on it mentally, and segregate it from the rest of existence. It takes place just before you start thinking about it, before your mind says, oh, it's a dog, or oh, it's pizza, it's what I'm thinking about. That flowing, soft focus moment of pure awareness is mindfulness. In that brief flashing mind moment, you experience a thing as an unthing. Meaning, when he says thing that's an unthing, we got that, when a thought is starting to pop up, we get a grasp, we understand preconceptually, this is a thought of something popping up. This is a feeling about something popping up before we get wrapped into it. We kind of recognize what it is before we start labeling it, conceptualizing about it, filling in the blanks. That initial, that's what he's talking about. You experience a softly flowing moment of pure experience that is interlocked with the rest of reality, not separate from it. Mindfulness is very much like what you see with your peripheral vision, as opposed to the hard focus of normal essential vision. That's a very good way of talking about it. And by the way, I want you to really remember this idea. What is this idea? Remember this sentence. You experience a softly flowing moment of pure experience that is interlocked with the rest of reality, not separate from it. Not separate from the rest of reality. Remember that, because when I give you a Jewish parallel to this, it's going to blow your mind, literally, based on this sentence. So get ready. Peripheral vision. Everybody knows what peripheral vision is. Yet this moment of soft, unfocused awareness contains a very deep sort of knowing that is lost as soon as you focus your mind and objectify the object into a thing. In the process of ordinary perception, the mindfulness step is so fleeting as to be unobservable. We have developed the habit of squandering our attention on all the remaining steps, focusing on the perception, cognizing the perception, labeling it, and most of all, getting involved in a long string of symbolic thought about it. That original moment of mindfulness is rapidly passed over. It is the purpose of Vipassana meditation, or the meditation we're doing, to train us to prolong that moment of awareness. So what is that saying to us? That saying is, if we train ourselves, if our meditation skills get strong enough so that when thoughts and feelings pop up and states of mind pop up when we're meditating, we just let it go. Oh, let it go. Don't chase it. Let it go. Don't chase it. We're staying in this peripheral kind of awareness. When this mindfulness is prolonged by using proper techniques, you find that this experience is profound and that it changes your entire view of the universe. This state of perception has to be learned, however, and it takes regular practice. Once you learn a technique, you will find that mindfulness has many interesting aspects. Yeah. And that's why we meditate at the end of every class. And that's why you should meditate every day. So that he's actually talking about your experience of the world, your quality of life being enhanced by being able to maintain mindfulness at all times. All right, we're going to continue with the next segment, the characteristics of mindfulness, next week. But this is going to put a lot of stuff together, let me tell you. Okay. We will stop the sharing. Margaret?